Hello again. Welcome back to my channel. This is the Tone Deaf Monk. So let me start off and ask you a few qualifying questions here. Are you looking to up your game? Are you tired of dangling your dongle? Have you yet achieved nirvana with your current gear? Well, if you have answered yes to any of those questions, then you're in luck. Today's video is on iBasso's latest foray into digital audio player. This is the DX180. And if you're in the market for a DAP, here is one that I think you should definitely put on your shortlist and make sure it evolves around your radar. All right, a little bit about who iBasso is. In case you're not in the know, you shall be in the know. Back in 2006, they have been around a while. So come around 2011, iBasso did something that was revolutionary. It was the first. In 2011, iBasso was the first to bypass the Android ALSA driver and develop the world's first 24-bit 192 kilohertz Android player. Well, that launched iBasso into becoming a market leader in technology and design and paving the way for audiophiles to enjoy high-res audio on the go. That first revolutionary player, the DX180, was a beast, not only in performance, but also how feature-rich it was. It was sporting a ESS Sabre DAC, a 9018. Now, this was followed up by the DX50 and shortly thereafter the DX90 in 2014. A working unit from 10 years ago. Still going strong, still sounds great. New batteries. I bought two. They were $10 each, just so you know. This DX90 was again ahead of its time. It had separate DAC and amplifier chips. And after that came, I know the naming system doesn't make sense, a DX80 came out after this one, and it boasted yet again an improved screen. It had then more digital outputs for both optical and coaxial for its SPDIF output, where this was only coaxial only. It also sported dual SIM card trays. Again, iBasso was the leader in DAPs. And of course, there was other brands that were it competing with, but it continued to evolve and grow. And that's who iBasso is today. It was then that iBasso switched into its first use of the Sirius Logic DAP chips. So, been using them for a long time. And so it goes, with each new release, seeing new innovations and propelling iBasso into the market leaders they are now today. They gathered a huge fan base and dedicated loyal customers. There was some stumbles and grumbles, but iBasso never wavered from their core values. If you look at the back of the box, it says, "In pursuit of perfection." Fast forward to today, the DX180, the direct successor to the DX160, the DX170. I have had the pleasure of owning both. The DX160, I love the sound, but when I forgot, and I kept plugging it into my quick charger, the USB-C would start to smoke. And you had to unhook it really fast, otherwise you were going to burn it up. And then there was the lag. Not so great for streaming media apps. And just the overall UI was very sluggish and slow. So anybody who ever owned a DX160 for playing direct files from the SD card or memory loved it to smithereens. I certainly did. And those who tried streaming apps were less enamored. Along came the DX170. Fixed a lot of those issues, improved upon its slightly warm sound signatures, and still retains a special place in my heart to this day with its wonderful sound performance. Amazing battery life. It was super light. It was comfortable. It was nice to hold in your hand. That was a long intro. And fast forward to today. 18 years in, iBasso launches the DX180. I hope that gave you a little context about who iBasso is and why this next player should be on your shortlist, why it should be worth your consideration. This whole video is going to be time-stamped, so feel free to jump in whatever interests you the most. In this video, first section, I will talk about the physical player, the layout, and then go into some specs in the second part and some geek speak. So for those of you who get off on that kind of thing, get your wet naps ready. Then, I'm going to go more into a quick kind of software overhaul stuff. Not too deep, and a short overview of the stock Mango player with its good stuff and its quirks. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this software section because the DX180 sports Android 13, full Android 13, and a Google Play Store for you to go to town on. You download whatever you want, whatever player that floats your boat. You don't have to use the embedded Mango player. You are not strapped down to one option only, I believe. With that, I think there is some other options on the market that might work better for you. Next, I will share some observations, a few IMs I used getting my impressions on this player sound signature. Yes, all players sound different, at least to me. Lastly, some comparisons to a few of the current DAPs I have tried, tested, and owned. SHANLING M5 Ultra, CAYIN N3 Ultra, Hibi R6 III, and Astel & Kern Con Max are all sitting here, and when I was doing ABCDs. So let's begin. Okay, well, there are 3 colorways in 2 flavors. There's a light, I made these colors up, by the way. It comes in a light powder blue, a minty green, and a midnight black. If they're not actually named like that, they should be. The 2 different flavors are 3 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigs of onboard storage. That one's going to sell for $479. And then there's the 4 gigabyte of RAM and 128 gigabyte of onboard storage. That one will sell for an upcharge of $529, respectively. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the player and how gorgeous it is. This is the green version. I want to thank iBasso for supplying this to my channel. It is a beautiful player. It has the green is a chameleon, by the way, and I'll show you in pictures. Depending on light, it could look blue, could look minty green, it could look it changes its color, depends on light. It's absolutely stunning and gorgeous. That frosted back that they all have is just adds a classy touch to it. And then there's the two-tone metal insert on the back with the 2 screws that will allow you to change the battery out. So the one side with the power on, off, and volume wheel and the 3 buttons on the side, play, pause, forward, rewind, or rewind forward. You can configure that. There's a brushed aluminum on that side, and the other 3 sides are a finer brushed aluminum. So some real detail went into this player. On the bottom, there's your single end output and your 4.4 balanced. On the top, there is your single micro SD card and your quick charge USB-C port on that one there. The volume wheel has this little watch crown look to it. It feels great. It's a tactile feel. It has enough weight to it that is still easy to operate, but it just feels very tactile, solid, and overall pleasure to use. That feature of the replaceable battery should be talked about more. Name how many other players other than iBasso DAPS that actually do that, and you can't because everyone stopped. It's disposable. Where I still have a player from 2014 that I use because it is usable. Enough can't be said about that. Thank you, iBasso, for thinking about the little guy. Now, in this next section, let's talk about what's inside, the guts. The DX180, now, forgive me on this section. For you techies out there, you'll love this. For me, this is not as important as the sound, but I'm going to make it exciting for you. Are you ready? The DX180 continues the tradition and its use of Cirrus Logic chipsets. And in this case, the DX180 uses a quad array. The DX170 used dual. iBasso is flexing here in its years of experience and know-how, and incorporates its latest audio system controller, the FPGA Master 2.0. This is a new controller. This is upgraded from the DX170. And with this, iBasso was pretty darn proud. With the Master 2 working the quad DAC chips in unison to exceed the theoretical limitations of the 43131, and squeezing peak performance with musical finesse in the time and frequency domain. So iBasso's industry-leading algorithm fully exploits the full potential of the DAC chips, supercharging, you might say, the performance not previously possible. What this FPGA Master 2.0 does with its picosecond level precise control and fine-tuned adjustments of the DAC clock to independently stream the data of each of its 4 DAC chips to ultimately reduce distortion so you hear more music, less digital artifacting and noise, and greater details. That's what it's going to do for your life. But there's more. All this goodness inside of this DAP makes the DX180 have some impressively low floor noise, and it's clear iBasso is proud to show this off, just how clean this player really is. Even driven on high gain and full tilt boogie, the DX180 boasts some impressive numbers, only bested by the more expensive big brother, the DX260. The DX180 is no slouch in the power department either. In 3.5 single-ended mode, 2 volts of output, which equals 281 milliwatts per channel at 32 ohms. Very respectable. With very low output resistance of 0.6 ohms. So that's not going to color your gear at all. And that 3.5 output has a lot of juice to drive your most IAMs that I have ever tried. I would obviously probably switch to the 4.4 if I was driving a fat frequency Scarlett Mini. The 4.4, speaking of, will give you up to 690 milliwatts at 32 ohms in balanced mode. And that's enough to drive the hardest of IAMs and a lot of good full-size cans as well. Now, what makes this whole thing go super snappy speedy? Well, that's the Snapdragon 665 silicone on a chip. Incredibly fast and responsive, zero lag, really. Combined with Android 13, also keeps the DX180 running very cool, even when being driven very hard. I tried. Now, this 3200 milliamp battery sounds on the smaller side compared to some of its competitors, but with up to 15.5 hours of all-day battery life running on the 4.4 output, I can attest to the usability of this player for long listening sessions. Combine that with the PD 3.0 and Quick Charge Q 3.0 protocols. When you finally do run out of juice, all it takes is a short time of 86 minutes to fully supercharge the battery back up again, and without leaving you hanging without any tunes. The DX180 also lets you use it as a USB DAC or send the signal out via the 3.5 jack, using it as a mini coax digital output to another amp for even greater flexibility. Tried that with my XDuo XD05, but quite honestly, I didn't need the extra power of that, as I found the DX180 had enough juice for me for anything that I tried here. The headphone output also can be switched to line output as well for even more options, and we haven't even talked about the two-way Bluetooth 5.0, all of its codecs, and dual band Wi-Fi support. So, okay, you got it? Fully loaded player. But how does it work? More importantly, how does it sound? In this next section, let us explore more of that. Let's talk about the embedded Mango player. I will admit it is not my favorite player. It took me quite a while of rooting around to actually find stuff. Some stuff was easy to find, some stuff not so much. Now, again, the interface is quite gorgeous. The screen is gorgeous. That picture of Adele might leave some wanting. Couple of the cool things that I found, if you on Mango Player and you touch Artist, it will actually come up with all of the albums that artist is in. So I thought that was cool. If you hit that little button there again, I should probably just show you what button that is. If you hit that button right there again, come on, fat fingers. It also tells you to add to playlist or delete a track. And I love players that have the easy ability to delete a track. I have 10,000 tracks on the card, and I download typically full albums. If I don't like that song, I can easily delete it from not just the player's memory, but also from the memory card as well. Add to playlist. Yes, that was great, right? Add to playlist, except for where the hell is the playlist? That's a great question. So I did find by touching the picture, it comes up with lyrics. If you swipe over, it goes track backwards, track forwards. That was kind of cool. And if you slowly go to from the side edge, so this is very hard to do when you're using the included TPU case. Gorgeous as it is, little harder to use. So on this part, it gives you the option to do gapless, some of the quick functions, right? Gapless, gain, high, low, play mode, equalizer, on, off. Yes, it has two kinds of equalizers. It has graphic EQ and PEQ. With the PEQ, to talk about that for a second, there's 6 different settings that will save, but you can't name them. Inside those 6 different names, those settings, they call them, you have 6 different adjustable filters, 6 different bands you can adjust. So 6, 6, and 6 there. Moving on from that dark conversation. Now, this is where it got tricky. I spent hours trying to find where this is. If you slow swipe from the other side, it then shows you all of your tracks. Now you can organize that from folder. You can organize that from title, album, artist, added, or folder. And you have the option to then categorize it by numbers or alphabetical, so you can help find your sections. But I was looking for, how do I add, where's my playlists? Where is my folders? Where is my stuff? Well, this is really hard to see. You can see over here. I'll pull up a picture that I showed somebody. That little gray bar, if you then pull it over one more time, then you can get to your music, your album, artist, genre, playlist, now playing recent, and you can find where your files are. Now, that's also how, if you go onto your SD card, you find a folder, it's got all of your test tracks. And then you can just click and select all those and then add them to the playlist. But, oh man, that was not easy to find. To be honest with you, I don't use the Mango player. There's another one here that I use, but we'll not talk about that at this time. So, there's also, I've also put title on mine as well. Really, like, it's full Android title, right? Everything, all the features are there, including downloadability. It has that ability too. So, full on, full Android, no questions. Now that the Geek Out section is done, we're going to move on to some synergy and how I determined the DX180 sound signature. How did I get here? I think all sources do have a unique sound signature if you take the time to find it. Okay. And that being said, here's some observations with some IEMs that I tried and I picked deliberately to get to know this player. I have been listening and burning in this with the iBasso burn-in device. That doesn't come included in the box, though it says it does. I have one for my DX180. This player has over 100 hours of burn-in time on it, just so you know, and I've done my due diligence. Some observations for some gear that I picked specifically to test the DX180. First one is the single dynamic driver from Nice HCK, the Himalaya. Now, I really like this dynamic driver IM. I think the bass is super punchy and fast, and I wanted to listen to the DX180 and I wanted to understand how it did bass. How did it control bass? How did it control the driver, dynamics, that kind of thing. My observations kind of went in a surprising way. With the DX180 and the Himalaya, it brought out the finesse of the top end that I thought was okay with the Himalaya, but I didn't think it was anything special. Well, the precise nature of the DX180's top end was doing something special. The mids are very uncolored, I was kind of thinking, and quite detailed. Bass is tight and punchy, and that's my favorite. Well controlled. It really did control that dynamic driver's ability to attack and decay, and have the right tonality of that too. So not just the attack and decay, but actually the resonances, and it did it superb. Next up was the Elysian Acoustical Labs Pilgrim, another IM that highlights just how transparent and natural sounding the mids are, in my opinion, on the DX180. The highs are probably one of my favorites. Again, one of the favorite traits of the DX180. And it adds some crispness. I know that's not a real technical word, but it added some kind of crispness for some of my other warmer laid back gear, and for stuff and very revealing IMs like the Pilgrim. What it did for the Pilgrim really was just bring out the best in the top end without adding coloration. It just added some... I thought the best pairings for the DX180, actually it worked for everything, but again, it was doing something special sauce in the top end. So warmer IMs like the SHANLING ME600, that hybrid, again, it brought the top end to life, and it didn't color up the warmer mids. It didn't affect them at all. And again, took those two 6mm dynamic drivers and made them extra punchy. I loved them on the iBasso DX180. Tribrids like my Zenz Mangert Up with EST drivers and the thew Audio Oracle, again, where ESTs are simply just kind of adding that little bit of shimmer up top, a little bit extra sparkle. The DX180 added just a little bit more attention to details with those ESTs. It brought them more to life. And again, that was my takeaway for the top end of this player. I think out of all of the takeaways for this player and its sound signature really had to do with what it could do to the top end, adding very good attention to detail, without really adding too much extra energy or colorization. Very hard to describe other than what I just said. I also tried them with the LITLE's new SO8 planar. A very, very revealing IM. Planars have a uniqueness in its timbre. And some cases it can really sound like a planar, and in some cases it doesn't sound like these new generations of planars coming out seem to be giving you all the benefits of planar, but none of the planarness that you would normally associate with this metallic kind of unnatural timbre. Through the DX180, absolutely stand out. It was super revealing. The very holographic 3D stage was also something that was very, very notable in its playback and its presentation. Okay, in this next section, let's talk about versus. Let's see how it did versus some of the other players on the market that have currently come out, to give you an idea of its sound signature. And this was kind of fun to do, was to do ABC DAC swapping, right? Same song, same file, but just played on the same IEM or the same headphone, played through different players, right? So versus $579 CAYIN N3 Ultra. Now this is the tube hybrid little DAP. Lovely little player. It's a lovely little player, but strictly files only, local files only. When I mean local files, it doesn't even have any storage on board. Everything is played from the micro SD card. There is no Wi-Fi, there is no Bluetooth. There's no streaming whatsoever, so no Tidal, no Qbuzz, no Spotify, no Apple Music for you. Whatever is on the memory card is what you got. The tubes do add some kind of uniqueness to this player. It does add an extra layer of bass texture and warmth, though the overall player's tonality is a little bit forward and a little bit more aggressive in the mids, especially in solid state mode, where that kind of mellows out a bit in the tube mode. Mids are very super silky. Highs are not as crisp as the DX180, and there's none of that special sauce up top. At $549, you can also pick up a SHANLING M5 Ultra. Now, this definitely plays warmer, though this player was not as warm as my M8, and the M9 Plus is even warmer than that. The SHANLING will offer you more power. It has almost 1100 milliwatts of power. There is no Android. It's a completely Linux-based in-house system. So you do get one streaming ability, which is Tidal, but that's it. There's no options at this point to do anything else, so it's Tidal or local files only for you. Now, if you needed more power, that might be a better choice for you. It's a good thing that the stock player is fantastic. It is one of the best that I've ever used for a user experience. The SHANLING also allows you to have a companion app on your phone to control your player, which I think is also really standout, easy to use. But you need Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to make it go. What about the DX170? Now here I'm going from memory, okay? I do remember the DX170 being a tad warmer than the DX180. The battery life was still good, but I don't remember it being this good. Not 15 and a half hours good, that's for sure. It was nicer to hold with a smoother shape, less angular lines. It took a step back with Android 11, and the UI, though, was much better than the DX160, but still a bit laggy. It used only two of the Cirrus Logic 43131s, where now the DX180 uses a quad array with the new system controller. So there's a lot of things that have changed from the 170 to the 180. Next up, $499 Hibby R3 or R63. It's big, it's heavier, it's got a bigger battery, though less battery life, like half. And I'm being nice. It's definitely more mids forward. I find a lot of Hibbies are like that. And the overall tonality of the player, though, is a bit more sterile. Definitely doesn't give you the warm fuzzies in its overall tonality. Again, fully functional software with full Android based DAP as well. It uses where the volume controls on the top, where my preference personally is on the side. I really like the way the DX180 is laid out, with the buttons on one side and the volume control all on the same side. My fat thumb can easily do all functions. Tickety-boo. Some conclusion action. The DX180, I think, marks a clear step up and proper successor to the DX170. If you're on the fence, I think it's a clear upgrade. The new angular shapes and bold lines, I think, are keeping up more with today's modern design styles, and the color schemes are absolutely stunning and beautiful. This super quick Qualcomm 665 processor is very responsive. Combine that with this gorgeous 1080p, it's full 1920 by 1080p 5-inch capacitive touchscreen made by Sharp. It's a pleasure to use. The two options where you can go to the 4GB RAM, 128GB onboard storage is a welcome offering. You can buy a 512GB card, which seems to be the most economical out of the bunch, though this player will take up to a 2TB in the future. You can go to a 512 and the 128GB onboard memory, and I can get about 12,000 songs in DSD and FLAC files, so a lot. Overall, fit finish and that crown style volume wheel makes a very attractive player. But the special sauce. The special sauce lies with whatever the DX180 does to the highs. I can't say that enough. Bringing out the very best in your gear without adding any colorization. I think the same could be said for the mids, keeping the sound signature quite neutral. I do like the bass is my kind of bass. It's speedy, it's punchy, has excellent control and weight. The dynamics are standout. The stage of the DX180 again can project a 3D holographic stage with great depth, instrument placement, stereophonics. It excelled in that category with gear that I had that could also relay that information to your ears from the music into the player and out to your gear. On my wish list would be a bit more of an overhaul for the Mango player. Bigger UI components, easier to use, that's for sure, more logical, and especially pulling from the sides with a case on is really, really hard. So work on that, please, iBasso. I'd love to see an RGB light on the next reiteration, the DX190. And I'd love to see it behind that volume wheel. And the Astel and Kern Con Max, one of the things that I fell in love with A&K players is they have this behind the illuminated volume wheel, and it goes RGB depending on your bit rate. And I'd love to see that integrated into the next version of this player. So that would be killer. Be super sweet. Anyway, make it a functional light that was also dimmable, or the ability to turn it off too. The 3 side buttons right there. It's nice that they have the ability to switch its orientation. I thought that was pretty cool. But I wish there was a feature where you could lock those. I didn't find them. So I apologize if that's there, but I didn't find it. I didn't find a function that you could lock the volume wheel or these buttons out. So if this was in your pocket, it wouldn't be the only way to control the volume. Then at that point would be a screen touch. And I didn't see that. The case, even with this case, it was kind of easy to get that buttons pressed while it was in your pocket. Sometimes it was a little hard, actually. So it was a yin and yang thing going on. I think overall, there's really, this DX180 didn't leave me wanting for much. Has great power, great battery life. It was light, it was portable, it was pocketable, it was fluid and fast. The UI contents to pull down stuff all were very responsive, made sense. The full Android 13 was very welcome with full Google Play. The bright, gorgeous, stunning, beautiful screen was something that gets overlooked on a lot of players. The Hibby R4. It's $249. It's half of this, but you can tell where they cut corners. That it was a great DAP for somebody upgrading from your first DAP from a dongle or your first DAP. But it doesn't compete with the sound performance and the finesse of the DX180. Most of all, I really loved the clean musical playback that the DX180 rendered with music. It has enough special sauce in the top end to do something my other players do not, and makes me gravitate towards this player on certain gear. And the synergy that it has was completely surprising. The DX180 has enough special sauce in it with that whatever it's doing to the top end enhancement while keeping the mids super clean and uncolored, not bloated, not forward, not recessed. The bass, again, I found that I love this kind of presentation where it has ample control from the amplifier section to control the bass, where it's still tight and punchy yet textured, and all the nuances will be able to be drawn out from the music. I gotta say, well done, iBasso. It's a great little DAP. Thank you for watching.